Money is in the list. This is what we hear every time, but the truth is, how can you actually monetize your audience, especially when you're starting from scratch? Well, this is exactly what we are going to show you in today's episode. Hey everyone, Matt Giaro here. I'm your host here at Build Your Thing, the podcast where we help content creators find their unique creative voice, monetize their work, and build their tribe of loyal fans. And today I have another special guest for you. His name is Redekop, and he has been writing a newsletter and monetizing it from scratch while still working in a 9-to-5 job. So this is actually a quite inspiring story, given the fact that he's actually doing the opposite of what I am preaching, which is actually selling your own stuff, selling your own products, maybe coaching, maybe online courses, whatever. So he actually went another path, and this is interesting because learning from others and what others are doing is actually a great source of inspiration. So in this episode, Dylan will actually walk us through how he actually managed to build his newsletter and the different monetization methods, and also how to find advertisers and sponsors. And we are also going to talk about the dark side about creating a newsletter and, all the little hurdles and roadblocks that we can face when it actually comes to creating and monetizing a newsletter. So I couldn't be more excited to share this interview with you. And with that being said, let's get started. Okay, great. Welcome, Dylan, to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matt. I'm really excited to be here.
I mean, it's a pleasure to have you here. And we have been talking a little bit before I just started the recording. And well, I think we have a lot of things that we are going to talk about. So I'm very excited to have you here. So then for those who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you're actually doing?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Dylan and I run I have a 9-to-5 job in marketing is my main source of income, but my, kind of creator economy or, I guess passion project is my GrowthCurrency newsletter that I publish every week to now about 1,600 subscribers.
Wow, awesome!
Mm-hmm.
And how did you actually came to? Well, I'm going to start a side hustle and what was the process?
Yeah, it started out as something I did not really intend to. I guess, earn much of an income from. It was more of a desire to contribute to the creator economy in terms of sharing my experiences and thoughts and opinions online, which can be sometimes dangerous. But I felt like I wanted to write and publish and see where it led. So I about December 2020, January 2021 was right around when I started publishing on Substack, a free newsletter, and it had no real direction or specific focus. It was more, I'd write just a little bit of my thoughts or opinions on maybe something that I had read online or a general kind of topic of interest. And then I'd share a few resources that I had found over the past week or two that I thought were really helpful or interesting or that other people could benefit from. So that was kind of the inception of the newsletter.
And so it just started with you sharing your thoughts about the information that you were consuming, right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And then other things as well. But yeah, mostly I'd read something and it would, inspire some kind of emotional reaction or thoughtful reaction. And I'd just kind of go from there.
That's great. And how did you actually get your first subscribers, or were you just publishing without really thinking about who's going to read this?
Yeah, it was very much a publishing into the void. At the beginning, there was, I think I published to 0 subscribers for my first edition. And the nice thing with Substack is that it keeps a kind of a blog roll style catalog of your newsletters. Or of your editions, I should say. So even though there might have been nobody reading that actual email, people could always go back and review. So I knew that going in. So that wasn't really a huge concern, but I would just kind of share. I started sharing on Twitter, to be honest. That was the only thing I was using to kind of promote and share the newsletter was Twitter. So I would share what I was writing about on there. And, slowly but surely I started trickling in a few interested readers who were subscribing and reading and kind of saying, "Hey, this is pretty good. This is interesting." So kind of just kept going from there.
Great. And like, did you start with having any kind of followers on Twitter, or was it all like I'm starting from scratch on every platform and just seeing where it goes?
Yeah, I think in spring 2020 when the pandemic kind of started ramping up, I deleted Twitter from my phone. I was doom scrolling. It was not serving me from any kind of benefit, so I just deleted it. And then in the summer, like I said, I got this kind of itch to start publishing. I had written blogs in the past online, but never really taken it seriously or gone anywhere. But I did like the notion and the effort in turning my thoughts into written format. I think writing can really help you clarify your thoughts, and it's great for helping you be more concise and stuff. So I wanted to do it, and so I started a new Twitter account, or I shouldn't say a new Twitter account. I basically revamped an old one that I had, and I think there's about 200 followers on there, and they were from a different I guess account that I had been running, totally unrelated to what I wanted to do going forward. So I just kept going from there. So that was summer of 2020. About 6 months later, when I started the Substack newsletter, I was at about probably like 500 followers, 600 followers or so. So I had a small audience to share with, but it was definitely nothing massive. So it did kind of feel like starting over for sure.
Yeah, so like what I see is like the hardest part is always getting the initial traction. So
Mm-hmm.
can you walk us a little bit more through the process of you actually starting to see some traction that actually helps you to just continue and like push forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll preface it by saying when I started publishing, I knew that it wasn't going to be an overnight success. I had been listening to a podcast by a gentleman named Danny Miranda, and his approach to starting his podcast was, I'm gonna do 100 episodes, and I'm not gonna quit or change my mind or make any decision about where the podcast is going to go until I hit that 100 mark. So it's like basically that was kind of the milestone that he was going to decide what he wanted to do, if he wanted to keep going with it or if he wanted to quit. And so I liked that approach of having that sort of, I guess, that North Star, that goal of hitting before you give up on something. So I thought, well, I'm going to publish, 100 weekly newsletters before I decide to quit. I'm sure something good could come from that consistency and putting out that many things or putting out that many editions. So that's how it kind of started. And so knowing that I was sort of going to give this a shot for a bit of the long haul, that 100 weekly editions is about 2 years. I just I wasn't too worried about the traction in the beginning, about the momentum. I knew that I had to have the mindset of more of a long-term approach. So I just was, like I said, I was sharing what I was writing about on Twitter and promoting it there. And then I think about 100 days, I was approaching my 100-day sort of launch mark. So 100 days after I'd launched my first edition. I can't remember exactly how many editions that would be. Divide that by 7 and that would probably tell you. But I remember thinking, it'd be great to have 100 subscribers in 100 days. And I was at like 91 or right around 90. And so, I tweeted out, it'd be awesome to have 100 subscribers in 100 days. And, I've been publishing this newsletter for close to 4 months. And so that got some people's attention, and they were just being helpful, and they were already following me on Twitter. And so a few people subscribed, and, stuff like that, just people being kind, and just wanting to help me out by, helping me hit that arbitrary milestone was something that definitely, really helped me kind of keep pushing through, that people just were being generous, I guess. And that was validating, and it was nice to see. So that was kind of the first, like I said, the first 100 days. It took me 100 days to get 100 subscribers. And then things started kind of accelerating a little bit after that.
Yeah, that's that's interesting. And so you have like this kind of a, I don't know if I can say unique approach, but I'm probably biased when it comes to that. So I've never been relying on ads or on sponsors or anything like that when it comes to monetizing my audience. I've always been like relying on like the products or the offers that I can craft by myself.
Right.
And you actually took a like another path, which is actually monetizing and just find sponsors for your newsletter. And this is how you started actually monetizing it, right? So can you
Mhm.
talk us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. I'll add in that I did have, a little bit of affiliate revenue from a few courses that I had taken, like Ship 30, for example, that when you sign up, you get an affiliate link. So I did get a little bit of, affiliate income from that, but it wasn't, terribly significant, a couple $100 over several months. So nothing, nothing to break the bank. But I did see about 6 months into publishing my newsletter, other people who that I was subscribed to their newsletters, and I noticed they had ad spots. If not sponsors, they even had ad spots for sale in their newsletter, which I thought was interesting. It was basically like, hey, your ad could be here, almost like an empty billboard in their newsletter. And I thought, okay, well, I mean, if they can do it, why can't I? And so I did the same thing. I had this kind of empty billboard spot at the top of my newsletter, and it went unnoticed. I think, well, I mean, maybe people noticed it, but it didn't really generate anything. And I thought, okay, well, it's worth a try. I'll do this for a few weeks and see if anybody's interested in sponsoring a small newsletter. And there really wasn't a lot of interest at that time. But then I found out a few months later, so this would have been about 7 or 8 months after starting to publish, that there's a platform called Swapstack. Swapstack.io, I believe, is the URL, and they are a ad marketplace for newsletters. And if you have basically 500 subscribers or more, you can create an account. I believe you could create an account with less, but most of the sponsors and brands that are on their platform, they're not really overly interested in paying for ads and sponsorships in newsletters with less than 500 subscribers. So really what this Swapstack does is it connects newsletters with these brands that want to advertise in newsletters. So when I found that, I created my profile, through my numbers. I think I had about 650 subscribers at the time, and just kind of sent a few. You can pitch brands as well, as then they can reach out to you. So I sent out a few pitches. It was kind of quiet for the first 3 weeks, month almost, and then I got my first inbound request, which was really exciting. And then it kind of took off from there. So the first $25 ad was booked. It didn't perform very well, and they didn't rebook with me. But I had the kind of proof of concept. It was validated that this could be something that could work. And so if you fast forward to now, I've built, I've grown the newsletter about threefold since then, just about, and I've been able to get the attention of larger brands and bigger budgets and stuff like that. Not thousands and thousands of dollars, but stuff that's been able to supplement me on the side for sure.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And let me ask you a question. So why did you actually think about, like, was it just like to test or to emulate what someone else was actually doing with this empty ad slot, or didn't you, or weren't you really comfortable in just creating something on your own, or what was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, I think I had a lot of. I didn't really think I had much to offer people in terms of my own products, my own offerings. At least not at that point. I work in marketing, but I really didn't feel like I had much in the way of, real marketing expertise, knowledge to share. I'm more of a generalist. So, whether it's imposter syndrome or whatever you want to call it, I just didn't feel that I had really anything that I could monetize from a product standpoint or a course or anything like that. That being said, I did create a short, 18, 20 page guide or PDF to, it was kind of my first foray into lead magnets and products, was how to start your, a free Substack account and create a newsletter for free. essentially was what it was. And I used that as a lead magnet to help grow my newsletter. Again, this was shortly before I started monetizing it. So I was just using this as a free resource. Again, I think I felt the, maybe some imposter syndrome around the value of the information I was offering, and thought, no one's going to pay for this, so I'm just going to offer it up for free, and I'll get rewarded in new subscribers as opposed to financial. And I felt better as from a business standpoint or a revenue standpoint in selling ad space than, I guess, my own knowledge, which is maybe odd, but that's just kind of where I was at. Whereas now I've been doing this for almost 18 months. And so I'm feeling a little bit more confident in my experience and knowledge in this space, that I think I would be more comfortable in monetizing it. But again, that being said, I haven't really done so.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like this makes a lot of sense. And I think everyone who's listening to this and who has actually who experienced what you were experiencing with maybe not having the ideas, or maybe not feeling to be legit in order to sell something.
Mm-hmm.
This could be something interesting really to explore, and just I think also that having this first spot booked maybe also gave you a sense of, well, if a stranger is willing to pay me in order to advertise in the stuff that I'm writing, then maybe there is something that I can dig deeper into.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think it was shortly after that first ad ran that I had some more inbound requests from people who were already subscribed to my newsletter and asked if, they're like, oh, you take sponsorships? Here, I'll advertise. I'd like to, book an ad with you, or a slot of ads, or whatever it was. And I think I booked, I think Darren from craftsmancreative.co, he booked, I think, 4 ads, and I gave him, a 4 ad discount of 4 ads for, $80 or something like that. So it kind of went from there. A lot of the ads that I booked in the beginning were from really relationships I had already established. They weren't a lot of cold outreach or cold inbound. It was mostly all warm, somewhat established relationships. So I think, I'm just finishing up a piece right now on, this whole sort of journey of me monetizing the newsletter. And I'm going to be publishing that tonight in my newsletter. And really what I've noticed is I don't have this playbook on how to, get ads or monetize your newsletter with ads and sponsors. It's more of a kind of non-linear journey of starting to show some value with your newsletter and build a bit of a subscriber base, but then also build relationships with your readers and your network too. Because so many of my advertisers have been people that I've just gotten to know on Zoom, on Twitter, in communities that I've been part of. So I think that's really the way that's been successful for me. Other people, it might be very different, but for me, that's been definitely the biggest factor of success for this.
If you enjoyed this episode so far, can I ask you for a quick favor that will not take more than 10 seconds out of your valuable time? If you're an iPhone user, please head over to iTunes. I've just included a direct link to the podcast so that you don't have to search for it. Simply click the link and just tap and give this show a 5-star review. This will help me get more exposure so that I can feature and convince more guests to come on the show to share more valuable knowledge with us. And if you're on YouTube, simply hit the like button. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And now let's go back. I mean, I like that because you've been very transparent in this. That's not a linear fact because, as content creators, especially those who sell, coach trainings and this kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
we all have this bias that, well, we can theorize everything, we can come up with a step-by-step bulletproof foolproof process that you just have to follow and you're going to get the results. And obviously this is not the case. Sometimes even last on the last episode I was with John Brosio, and I went off a rant again, the internet marketing space, because there are so many things that just doesn't make sense. You see, same thing for well, I can teach you how to monetize your thing, but what people really don't take into consideration is that the market differs, the audience is not the same, the products are not the same.
Mm.
Like, there are so many factors that you can't really predict that this or that method will actually succeed. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I find that frustrating from a content consumer as well,
Yeah.
where it's like, I want to be as successful as you, and then I look at your step by step framework, and it's like, oh well, no, this isn't this isn't going to work for me or my situation or my audience or what have you. So really, when I'm putting this piece together, I'm trying to keep that in mind, and basically just explain what I did and how it got to where it got. It's not like you follow this step, then this step, then this step, and you'll get there. It's more like these are kind of the general ways I went about it. And it could be applied. Other people can do the same thing by, creating rapport with people, building rapport, building kind of a network, but not really think of it as a network. Think of it more as like, almost friends. And that might sound cheesy, but really that's kind of what I did. Was I met these people without really ulterior motives or the hopes of networking, quote unquote. It was more just like being interested in other people and wanting to, help them out and learn from them. And maybe if they have questions about what I'm doing, I could share that information as well. And so really building up those relationships as opposed to the LinkedIn networking kind of feel. It was more genuine, I felt, than that. And then when it came time to um, I guess once I started advertising, and some of these people reached out with, they wanted to even just help me out. I've had a few people reach out like, hey, I want to help you out. I'll buy one of your footer ads that are, only $30 or whatever. And they're just considering like doing it not out of charity, but just out of, it'll benefit me in some way if I get some new subscribers or new customers, but
Mhm.
I'm helping you out as well and supporting your newsletter. So it's been a really interesting journey, I think, when you come at it without that sort of, not slimy, but kind of I guess with an ulterior motive of trying to build a relationship for the sole purpose of monetizing it in some way.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I mean,
Hmm.
you like kind people on your on your email list. So this is actually great.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you have done a good job in attracting the right people, which is actually like 50% of marketing, right? You're just selling
Yeah.
to the right people. So that's
That's true.
that
That's true. That's a
yeah,
challenge.
that's a good point. So the other thing that I really wanted to pinpoint about what you were just saying is that when it comes to, let's say, putting up a framework or a step-by-step game plan or something like this,
Hmm.
the interesting thing is that not only actually showing, let's say, a concept or, well, I've done, let's say, XYZ, it's really like, as I told you before, like starting the recording, is that is really walking people behind the thought process. So what made actually make me um, what it actually took this decision. So what was my thought process?
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, people who don't really resonate with the tactical point of view, they may resonate with the premises and adapt it
Yeah.
to their own environment.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, you're asking kind of what was my sort of overarching sort of strategy or thought
Y-
behind starting and growing the newsletter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mentioned it earlier a little bit, was when I was, inspired by that other podcast who, they had decided to do 100 editions, right? And that was kind of for me, having that, really clear number of, I'm not going to stop doing this until I hit that point. Um, that really helped guide me. So I think that, and then what that translates to is how other people can, look at that. It doesn't have to be 100, but think about the consistency. So that's a word that gets thrown about very often, especially on Twitter. Be consistent, stay consistent, et cetera, et cetera. And it sounds kind of like a platitude, but at the same time, there's truth behind it, because if you start a newsletter or a podcast, Matt, you can relate. There's so many podcasts that don't make it past episode 7 or episode 10, and they just kind of fall by the wayside, right? And what could have happened had those people stuck with it and, actually published 50 episodes or 100 episodes, or, if they would have taken it further. So I think there is something to be said for consistency, even though it is one of those things that, you see people saying all the time. So I feel like it takes maybe more than just consistency. You need to be also resilient as well. So in the beginning, you may be publishing week after week after week. So you're, which is what I was doing. I was publishing weekly, and it's a slow growth. And so you have to, I guess, have that sort of resilient attitude where, whether I get 3 new subscribers, 30 new subscribers, or I lose 3 subscribers, I'm going to keep going. I need to be resilient and stay level with the tide, or with the waves that come in, whether they're, going to knock me down or lift me up. So that's kind of my mindset around it as well. Like it's a very, to get discouraged by, a few people unsubscribing or maybe some negative feedback or something like that. It sucks. Like, it's not fun to hear, but at the same time, if you can keep sort of that bigger picture in mind, it's not just like, this isn't a day-to-day project. This is a monthly, or not a month. This is, a longer term project. At least for me, it is. And I think when we want something bad enough to focus, we can see the end result and we can focus on the long term. It's a lot easier to stay both consistent and resilient. I'm not sure that's really the answer you're looking for. It's very kind of sort of out there, but really that's been sort of my mindset, is just to keep doing this every week and try to, gather feedback and make sure that my content is still helpful for people and resonating. So I always ask for feedback at the end of my editions, and, some weeks I get some and some weeks I get none. But really I just try to keep putting out, quality product week after week, and iterate and improve on it as best I can.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And what I just wanted to ask you is, like, did you put any kind of process in place where, like, or some rules where you were just let's say, not looking at your stats, or having someone else managing your inbox just to don't see the nasty comments, or like, did you like try to implement some of these kind of stuff? Like, yeah,
good question. I didn't, and I am still pretty obsessive about stats, even though I'm saying, stay consistent and resilient. And, just because I am consistent and I am resilient, it doesn't mean I don't follow those things. So, like, I know that I have 1,639 subscribers. I think, actually, Matt, you might have been my 1,640th. Like, I know that, and I know my open rate is going to always be, on my first send, is going to be between, 48 to 52%. Kind of, like, I know my stats quite well. I know my average daily Twitter followers are around 12 or 13. I track those stats every day. Like, I track how many followers I get in a spreadsheet. So, like, I am monitoring things because, like, I am strategic about it, more so even now than I was in the beginning, because I'd love to grow this to a larger extent. But I'm not overly concerned about the negativity, because if I do start seeing a slowdown in whether it's subscribers, if I start seeing a higher unsubscribe rate or a lower open rate, or I'm not getting, my follower rate on Twitter is dropping off, or my, engagement rate's dropping down. If I have to watch for those signals, because that's telling me something, and it's telling me either I need to, amp things up, improve things, talk to people to find out what's going wrong, maybe with my content, or I need to make some kind of change. So I do definitely stay pretty in tune with those details. If I was publishing much more polarizing content, like, if I'm being honest, my content is pretty, there's not a lot of, highly opinionated or very, emotionally charged content. It's mostly very, friendly, helpful, creator economy style content. I do have some, quote unquote, spiky points of view, one of my main ones that did get a little bit of not hate, but a little bit of sort of negative pushback was I said people shouldn't start blogs; they should just start newsletters. Like, starting a blog is a waste of time in this day and age, because you can start a newsletter and kind of cut to the chase. And so I put out my rationale for that, and there's a Medium post on it and stuff that you can read. But I
Yeah, I
got
read that.
did you? Okay. I got some pushback from a longtime professional marketer named Mark Schaefer. He had fun with the piece. Like he took the piss out of me a little bit, as they say, and countered all of my points. And he's built a successful blog, so of course he doesn't see any of my points as being valuable. But it was written with my perspective in mind, and I'd started blogs in the past and they'd gone nowhere and no one was reading them and they were hard to promote, and I just gave up. And so with the newsletter, it was part of me sticking with it, but it was also seeing something that worked. And so I thought, okay, well, this is why I think more people maybe would benefit from starting a newsletter than starting a blog post. And I wrote that. So, but yeah, other than, that, most of my replies to my newsletters are either positive or just questions, which is great. And I don't really set up too many safeguards for that stuff.
That's interesting. And to be honest, like here we have like a break point between what you're doing and what I'm doing. I think that I'm way too polarizing in my emails, so I'm going on rants, and like I don't like. I really play with with dangerous things here, but like for like it's just more like the way that I am. I'm maybe a little bit like politically correct when I'm, in gatherings, but when I'm with like the people that, um, like with the people that I trust and that I actually spend my
Mhm.
time with, I mean, I can be very harsh and not going into profanity or this kind of stuff, but like this is like how I treat my newsletter. So either you're in my inner circle or you can
Mm,
just opt out and click the click the link at the end of the email.
right.
So yeah.
Right, that's funny. I think there's a lot of value in that, and you're going to get, you might not attract perhaps a larger, group of people, but the people you do attract to your newsletter who resonate with your content, they're going to be very passionate, right? So I think
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
there's a lot of value in approaching it from that angle, but then you do have to, I guess, if you're concerned or sensitive, or the negative remarks really affect you, then you gotta maybe put up some of those safeguards that you were asking about, for sure.
The thing is that this it's I'm really sensible and really sensitive about, like, getting this kind of hate
Mm,
emails or people who are just, let's say, really upset about what I told. But to be honest, like, you just have to deal with it, because it's just like like sometimes it's also a kind of education that you take for yourself. Is if you see that people, well, you're getting negative comments, but on the flip side you're also getting people who just engage more with what you have to say. So
yeah.
sometimes it's a little bit good to have some pain and suffer a little bit, just
Mhm.
to really know that you're on the right track.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, that post I wrote, that was a little bit, I got a little bit of pushback from about starting a newsletter, not a blog. That probably got, the most the most replies when I posted the Twitter thread. Both people being like, "Yeah, this is great advice," and other people being like, "You're insane. Have you ever heard of SEO?" and blah blah blah. So like, those kinds of things can definitely help you. And also, maybe there was an angle that you hadn't considered before. So it can help you be more open-minded about the topic than just seeing it from one perspective. So it can be
Exactly. And
beneficial in
like,
both
if you
ways.
yeah, exactly. And if you even reverse engineer, let's say, the viral the viral type of content, like,
Hmm.
you're always going to recognize one single pattern, is that they all preach that even life is white or black, like there is no gray, there is no
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah.
True. But in life,
Yeah.
so many things are gray.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They are not black, or they are not white. So yeah, it's definitely something to consider. So
Yeah.
let's go back a little bit to the monetization part when it comes to monetizing
Sure.
with ads. You mentioned that the first company who booked a slot
Hmm.
didn't really get a good return on investment, so they didn't came back. So
Hmm.
what did you actually do in order just to pick people who or pick companies that actually will get a nice ROI, because this is actually what makes you rebook them and be
Yeah.
satisfied, and then just also recommend like advertising on your newsletter.
Yeah, it definitely, that's very important with when it comes to finding the right sponsors. And yeah, for the first ad, it was for a sports it was a sports college sports newsletter, and so it really wasn't. Yeah, there's going to be college sports fans who might read my newsletter as well, but there wasn't a good alignment there with my content, and so it's not surprising that it didn't perform well at all, and that they didn't come back. And I don't think that newsletter is actually even still around anymore. I went to check their website and it's gone. So I think what I and in the beginning, I'll be honest, Matt, I was taking anybody that was going to pay for an ad slot with my newsletter. If you wanted to advertise with me, that's all that kind of mattered, that you were going to pay for a slot. But then as your newsletter grows, as your subscriber base grows, as you maybe refine and hone in on a niche or a focus, then it's more and more important to and also as you're going to be charging more, it's more and more important to get the right kind of advertiser. And so I find myself now being more fussy on the advertisers I reach out to and the ones that are inbound. And I've had a few inbound requests that I just don't think, we've both agreed, like, this isn't quite the right fit. And there's a few that, I've tried anyway, and they've performed okay. But I've sent them their stats from their campaign, and the click rate was, it was okay. They probably didn't quite get the ROI they were looking for. And of course, in that case, they didn't rebook. And so, yeah, I think it's just going to be more helpful to everybody, your audience, yourself, the newsletter publisher, and the advertiser, if all those things are in better alignment. So that's kind of the thought process I go about it. Fortunately, I market to, or I write to, a lot of people in generally in business, in marketing, and in solopreneurship. So that casts a pretty wide net for advertisers and sponsors. But at the same time, not everybody is the right fit.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So I think like another question that would be interesting to tackle is, how did you find actually this alignment, right? So especially what I've read from one of your from I guess don't know if it was one of your posts or of your past issues of the newsletter, is that
Mm-hmm.
like you started so many things in the past, you didn't stick to them. And
Yes.
I also think that you're kind of a person who has, like, say, a lot of interests, and actually closing yourself down in one specific niche maybe also cause some anxiety. Am I
Oh,
right?
oh man, you have no idea. It took me a long
Yeah.
time
So
to
so
focus.
so how did you manage this?
Well, some friendly shoving from some uh, online friends who I'm in a community with, and I basically said, it was probably beginning of March of this year, so not long ago, and they essentially said, like, I was telling them I didn't really know how or where to take the newsletter from where it was, and somebody basically said, I think of you. You write a lot about your newsletter growth and experience in your newsletter. And he's like, I defer to you when it comes to stuff like ads, like how you're doing your ads and how you're, building and promoting your newsletter. So I see you as like the newsletter guy. Like, if there's somebody I want to, like, I write a newsletter too. And if there's somebody I want to look at, who's talking about, or anybody, I think of you. So he said, basically, I think that's really where you should drive your focus in your direction. And other people agreed with him. And, it had been something that I had been sort of thinking about myself. And this was kind of the validation I needed to just really, like, change that focus. And I was really scared because, like I said in that post, I have a lot of interests, and, niching down was something I had always avoided, because I was like, well, I don't want to, basically put myself into a box and not be able to get out of it. And it turns out all those fears are, they actually open up a lot more opportunity than I realized. by niching down, I was able to actually have way more ideas because I had one thing to focus on and way more angles of which to approach it and things to talk about it. So it was kind of this really strange paradox that I actually was very pleasantly surprised by.
Yeah, it's like the perfect example of doing counterintuitive things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I've been like, doing a lot of research for like around the topic of generalist versus specialist. Everyone is talking,
Hmm.
well, you need to be a specialist, but on the flip side, people who actually innovate are the generalists. So how can you actually find the sweet spot? So I think there is so many things to say. I guess we need to keep that for for another
Oh
for
yeah.
another time. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so what would be like the some advices you would give to someone who's just thinking about you know building a newsletter and
Hmm.
yeah, just starting out?
Yeah, and I do get that. I do get that question from time to time, and I think it's, to be honest, it's hard growing a newsletter. It's not. I mean, it's growing a podcast is even harder. So I can't really equate it to that. But the platforms like Substack and Review and Beehive is another one, and ConvertKit, which I use. These all give creators really easy access to growing a newsletter, and so with that comes this low barrier to entry. There's way more saturation in the newsletter space, but what I tell people is, there's only one you, and there's only one person who has, that shared experience, knowledge, and opinion, and that's you, right? So if you write from a place of your own experience and your own, knowledge and opinion, then you are your own product, right? So you can, even if somebody's writing a newsletter about product knowledge management, right? You can still corner that, have a piece of that pie, because you are doing it one way and you have thoughts and opinions and experiences on doing it. And so I think people do worry. Like, my point is that people worry about starting a newsletter because they think it's oversaturated, and that's one of the questions I get asked a lot. And I think what you really need to do is realize that nobody is you, and so that's one thing. I think if you approach with that mentality and write with that mentality, you'll benefit. The other thing is, know that it's not a overnight get rich quick or get a lot of subscribers quick strategy. It's not something you're going to be able to monetize immediately. It's not something that's going to just take off, unless, of course, there's caveats. If you have a huge audience that you just haven't started a newsletter yet, sure, you can grow a newsletter quickly with a captive audience. But for the general content creator who maybe has a few hundred followers on Twitter or Instagram or where have you, it's going to be a slow build. And that's why I approached it with the mentality of 100 editions. I set that kind of mark, that line in the sand of saying I'm going to publish at least 100 of these before I quit, before I give up, or before I really change course. And so that, for me, set kind of this much more long-term mindset. And that was very helpful in the beginning when things were slow, when it took me 100 days to get 100 subscribers. So I think knowing that it is a longer game is going to help people. And if you have if that more longer term mindset, you're going to probably be more successful.
Awesome, thank you very much, Dylan. Do you have anything else that you want to add?
Nothing's really jumping to mind. I just kind of get off my soapbox here, but yeah, I think people, again, a lot of people are just afraid to start and afraid to publish to nobody, and it is hard. And I think maybe I'll just add that the first 1,000 subscribers are the hardest, and it feels like a huge mountain to climb. And I'll do a little bit of self promotion. I did create a free guide on how to get your first 1,000 subscribers. And again, it's not a step one, do this, step two, do that. It's more of a general, these are a bunch of different strategies that you can kind of do at the same time that will help you grow your email list if you actually execute on all of them. day by day and build that way. So you're not going to get 1,000 subscribers in the 5-day email course, but you will learn about all the different ways that you can incorporate some things that I've used, some things that I reached out to other newsletter writers, and I use some of their strategies in this free course as well. So I think it's something that I wish I had when I first started out, because I kind of had to learn a lot of this stuff on my own. So if anybody's interested in that, it's the 1KS, would stand for 1,000 subscribers, 1KS roadmap. So if you go to growthcurrency.net/1KS-roadmap, you'll find it there.
Great. We're going to link to that in the show notes. And yeah, thank you very much for sharing all this with us, Dylan. And yeah, I wish you all the best and hope to talk soon.
Thanks, Matt. It's been fun.
All right. So I hope that you've enjoyed this episode with Dylan Redekop. I really enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed Dylan's transparency. So, well, you can't go wrong by being honest. And yeah, as usual, I left all the links in the show notes, so you can check out Dylan's work. And yeah, if you also want to know more about what I'm doing and want actually to learn the lessons that I've learned over the past decade being a content creator, building multiple 6-figure online businesses, I've also included the link to my private and secret emails in the show notes. So everything is there. Check it out. And yeah, with that being said, I can't wait to see you there. And also, don't miss out on next week's episode, because I'm pretty sure that there will be some interesting things again. So be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out. Thank you very much for tuning in today, and I hope to see you in the next one.